Hey, Shop Talkers, welcome to Shop Talk 360 Chat. Here with my very dear friend, Rich Celenza, who's an incredible entrepreneur. He's a content creator, a YouTuber, a podcaster, and also the creator of Mastering Self-Confidence, the program. Rich, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Very excited to have you here. The last time you interviewed me, I think it was like maybe a month ago or maybe 2 months ago. So I'm so stoked to interview you and share with our entrepreneur folks some tips that we're going to be discussing. Share with us a little bit about what you're working on now.
What I'm currently working on basically is, I would say more than anything, is just creating content for my YouTube channel and a podcast I have. That's what I've really been focusing in on since the COVID, because truthfully, I was traveling for so many years. I didn't have time to really create what I wanted to create regarding that, if that makes sense. So we were talking about doing a radio show about 10, 11 years ago with my friends, and we started one. And then I ended up taking on another job, and then I couldn't do it. So it was something in the back of my head, and then podcasting became more and more well-known. And I didn't plan on actually putting this much time or effort into it, because it was kind of just a hobby. Same with my YouTube, never planned on doing that, but one of my engineers convinced me, because I traveled so much, just show me your favorite restaurants and coffee houses and
yeah, those are great. I follow you on that.
It became something fun, and then as usual with me, I become obsessed with it. And during COVID, it's just given me a lot more opportunity to focus in on it. So that's what I've been doing, to be honest with you. And I have a program out to Mastering Self-Confidence. So I've been marketing that as well. It's basically to help men find the woman of their dreams, help them with hygiene, fashion, wardrobe, and with identity, I guess you could say, more than anything.
Yeah.
So those are the three things I'm doing.
Okay, wonderful. I would think also too, with the mastering self-confidence, that can be applied to, especially now, where we're all kind of trapped indoors, or we're all trying to, follow CDC guidelines and social distance. It's impacted so many folks emotionally and mentally and physically.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Now, how long have you been an entrepreneur, a business owner?
I don't look at myself as an entrepreneur, to be honest with you. I know that's a big word with you. I think I've never not been one to a certain degree. That does not mean I'm successful at what I'm doing, I guess you could say, because I think a lot of people portray themselves as an entrepreneur, that they're maybe very successful, that they accomplish all these things, which I do think I've accomplished a lot. But I look at myself as kind of just a creator, because I very seldom ever stick with one thing. I'm kind of crazy like that, because I think it was just maybe the environment I grew up in. With my family, for the most part, are all entrepreneurs. So I think a lot of people grow up in a family, I think that is, I can't say a lot, but a lot of people grow up in different families. And I think your programming, a lot of times, obviously, when it comes to maybe your work ethic or creativity and all that, comes down to what your family members you were surrounded by. I was surrounded by a lot of entrepreneurs. My family on both sides are from Italy. My mother's side of the family was, my grandparents came over from Naples, and he's a painter, my grandfather. So then he ended up having hundreds of grandchildren, but he was always independent for the most part. So his sons and his daughters and most of my family there went on, and some of them, to become very successful in painting companies, construction to a certain degree, even technology. And on my father's side, my father's father, he opened the largest garment shop in Chicago at one time. And a lot of my father's brothers and sister owned very large factories. That would be in the garment industry. That would also be, they still own one of the largest security mirror companies in the world, gas stations. So when it came to me, with my father, more than anything, he opened his own bar and nightclub restaurant at 2 years old. So I grew up with a father that was all, I can't say anti-corporate, but yes, he was the type of guy to say, you know what, I can't work for anybody. I got to do my own thing. Don't trust anybody. Don't depend on somebody. Don't work for anybody unless maybe it's family and blah, blah, blah. So he kind of programmed me to just I had the freedom to become what I wanted to become. And I think my mother did that as well. I talk about it as far as confidence go. I have two parents that installed maybe too much confidence in me to go, because sometimes you maybe should sometimes follow instead of always try to lead, but I'm somebody who doesn't do that. And sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. So that's kind of the backstory of it.
I love that. And it sounds like you've always been kind of creating your own path. You know, and it's interesting because you had touched on earlier, you mentioned that you're like, yeah, entrepreneur is a big word for me. And it is, because you know my background. I was with corporate America for such a long time. You know, that when I finally broke away 10 years ago on my own entrepreneurial route, it was kind of like reinventing myself and my own identity and what I want to do. And it sounds like you've always been on that path. So that's wonderful. Now, with so many folks, entrepreneurs, folks who are recently looking to pivot, to recreate themselves, to start their own businesses, or entrepreneurs actually pivoting, what's the top advice you have for entrepreneurs who's currently looking to reinvent themselves right now?
I think the one thing people have to do in this day and time is truly discover who they are and what they want to be, and kind of quit kind of bullshitting themselves. I think we've had these discussions where,
Sure.
yeah, the last decade, especially I think with social media and these platforms that kind of showcase all the things you're doing, a lot of it, and I hate to say this, it's phony. A lot of people are claiming they're doing a lot more than what they're doing. They're busier than they really are. They're making a lot more money than they are, and I think COVID kind of exposed a lot of people for who they truly are. And I always kind of go back to the youth regardless. If you want to keep being relevant to a certain degree, I think you have to be with the times. And if you're not with the times, eventually you're going to be out of time. You're going to just be, you know, a dinosaur to a certain degree. And I'm not saying that, you know, certain brands, let's just say, we could jump into that, say Louis Vuitton or any of these classic type things, or there's always room for vintage. But when it comes to, I think, an entrepreneur just surviving in this day and age, you not only have to look at what you're doing a lot more than ever, it's kind of on a global, but even if you just say North America, hypothetically, what truly is going on, because say I live in Florida, my life right now is completely different than, say, my friends, family members in New York, Chicago, and California.
Yep.
So now it's much different. You can't travel, or maybe you have certain ideas or certain things you want to do. You have to look at the the big scope now, not because I think everybody was on an even playing field. Now we're not. If I was an entrepreneur, and I say this sometimes, if you want to create anything or become something, you almost have to become selfish. And I don't mean selfish that not helping your family, not that type of selfish. What I'm saying is you have to figure out who you are, what you truly want to be. And I always say, when it came to me, I did what I wanted to do, when I wanted to do it, with who I wanted to do it with. And that's kind of a strength of mine. And I think a lot of people are either caught in two waves with entrepreneur. They want to do things, but they're afraid they're going to lose money, which could be the case, or they're not going to make enough money. But if I was somebody now, I'd call it like coming back from the dead. If now's the time to really experiment with whatever you want to experiment with, because I don't know if you'll ever have, you know, the opportunity, I guess, to a certain degree, because a lot of us have more time, I think, during COVID or during these times to really research, read, study, and do these things, where before we were so consumed with being busy, and a lot of the busy was kind of bullshit.
Yes, it's almost.
I don't know. Is that too long of an answer? I don't know. That's kind of.
Not at all. You bring up some very, very good points. It's almost the business of busyness, right? It's just busy to be busy. Wait, did that make sense? But no, I totally hear what you're saying. That makes total sense. You know, and I think you're right. COVID did expose a lot of folks that maybe weren't really doing what they were doing, or claiming to be where they were, or having all these whatever lavish lifestyles or endeavors that they're pursuing, because it really just kind of grounded everybody, right, for a while.
Yeah, I don't think people want to admit when they're failing anymore or struggling. And I don't mean that complaining wise, but most of us are. If you're an entrepreneur, you're always failing.
You're right.
I think if you're pushing yourself, right? In my opinion, if you're always, because you have to learn, and usually you learn by your failures. You're not,
That's
a
right.
lot of times, don't get me wrong, succeeding is one thing. You're
That's
always trying to succeed. But my point being is, you got to look at a lot of people back to an entrepreneur now, I think, is shitting in their pants a little bit because they're like, if I go do that now, I may fail, right? Or if I try something new, or it's based around money instead of kind of substance to a certain degree. I don't always do things for money. I
yeah.
do them for, self-gratifications, back to selfishness. But I remember even making my films are like, you're not going to make any money. I didn't care. I wanted to make money, but I wanted to experience of that. Even when I wrote a couple books,
Yep. Yep.
even like I was creating an app recently, and they're like, the odds you make, how much money that's going to take you, you're not going to make. I don't always look at that. So I think for entrepreneurs to kind of restrict themselves sometimes, I think is a killer, because it's almost like they'll come up with an excuse a lot of times, sometimes when they can try different things, but they won't do it. And maybe that one thing is the one thing they'll be successful in. So
I like your path that you're taking. So you're always creating, you're really just doing what you want to do. And it's interesting because I think as I get older now, it took me a while, maybe just from decades in corporate America and always just kind of, going by the rules and doing what you need to do. And it took me a while to understand and actually apply how to say no.
mm-hmm.
I know it sounds so, it's
Oh,
but
for
similar
sure.
to what you've always been living that, right? So you've always been living that, knowing that. And I think finally I'm at this age where it's like, okay, if I say no to this, that means I can do this. And
Mm-hmm.
also this like light bulb went off. I'm like, hey, wait a minute. And then it made me feel selfish. So there's that guilt of like, hey, am I being selfish? But at the end of the day, we're the only ones who can make ourselves happy, right?
Back to your entrepreneur word, it's very close to being an artist, I think,
Yep.
because you want to create something, right, that either somebody else is doing that you want to emulate, or you want to go on your own path and create something. But when it comes down to it, I think an entrepreneur is somebody that wants to create the life they want to lead, not following somebody else's, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So like when I create what I create, I know I'm stepping into that world. That's where I want to be.
Yep.
If that kind of makes sense. I'm not somebody who's going to follow somebody. Like, I don't want to, I'll work for someone else. I have no problem doing it as long as it fits within what I want to do as a person too. And that goes for if I want to write a book. I mean, I know I'm going to I want to experience that. If I'm creating a program, if I'm doing this with you, I want to experience it. And I hate to say it. If I don't, I'm the first one. I call it like pages in a magazine. I just turn the page. You're just another page. So I will move on. I will say moving on is one of the keys in life. I think for me, that's always benefited me and then kind of destroyed me, because I don't stick with one thing. My experiences are wonderful, right? But then me always failing at a lot of things, again, is horrible. And again, it just depends on how you look. Just because my books may not be on the New York best-selling list, but if I inspire thousands of other people to read my book, that's kind of what I'm into.
Yep. Yep.
So it's, again, creating the life that you want to live, not kind of being engulfed in everybody else's. Again, selfishness, but I'm just being honest.
Okay. No, I love that. So one more last question on this and we'll move on to another topic. Now, what do you think is the most, and maybe you already answered it, but what do you think is one thing most struggling entrepreneurs lack that if they just were laser focused on, they would increase their success?
I think everything comes down to fear.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to get over being embarrassed, I think, or not succeeding. Because I think a lot of things we could be doing, we won't do because we don't think we're going to succeed at going, that route. I'm always pivoting, trying many different things. And I'll see how, I always say this. So my podcast lately, I've been constantly changing that because I want to see different results. A lot of people, I want to see different results, good or bad. I don't think people want to test things to see if they're good or bad is basically what I could say. So with my podcast, 1 minute I would just do it this style. A couple months, I'm going to try this style. Now this couple months, I'm going to try interviews. This time I'm going to try it with a co-host. This time I'm going to do it on video. Next time I'm going to do it on audio. I'm always evolving and changing. Now, to somebody else, they may be like, that's ridiculous because you're never going to find, you know, your true niche, or you're not going to be focused. But me being unfocused makes me very focused, if that makes sense. I'm the flip of that.
Yep.
I'm constantly testing. I'm a tester. I don't care if I test making films, writing books. I don't care if it's podcast, YouTube, apps, whatever. I want to test myself to see what I can get out of it. So that's kind of what I would say more than anything, because people just get locked into one thing. If you have a business, I see this with tons of people, you only run it that way. You're not trying, it'd be like almost self-marketing your lifestyle to a certain degree, is kind of like market yourself to be all these different types of things, I think. And that's what works for me. Now, I'm not going to say. So that's me. Freedom, I guess you could say. Have the freedom to go do what the hell you want to do at the end of the day.
Yeah, but I love that. But a lot of folks don't. And sometimes too, I've been an entrepreneur now for 10 years, 10, 11 years. And sometimes still, it's always like, it's a push. It's a struggle to do something different or present yourself different. But I love your creativity and how it leads you to so many paths. I think one thing that entrepreneurs have naturally that you definitely have is it's this natural, this innate curiosity, right? So, hey, let's try it this way. Hey, let's try it that way. Hey, what's over there? And in many ways, that's all part of the creating process.
Yeah, for me, it's the experience. I don't lie. That's what it's about. And it's not only experiment. It's not the experience just when I'm working on what I'm working on. It's when I'm not working on it. What am I experiencing when I'm not doing that? I'm still thinking about that. So if I'm doing something, I know that will lead into something else that'll make me think differently. That'll make me I'm always kind of changing. I'm evolving. I can't explain it. That's just what works for me.
Mm-hmm.
And most people, I think, restrict themselves if they want to just I have to do truthfully two things at once. That's how it has to, when I was making films, I was writing more screenplays. Then I was done making films for a while. Then I'm writing screenplays and writing a book. Then I'm done with that. Then I'm writing a book. And then I'm creating programs. Then I'm done with that. Then I'm doing a program with an app. Then I'm doing a YouTube with a podcast. I overstimulate my mind. I need that because then I'm kind of evolving constantly. And I like changing into different things, not maybe physically all the time, but mentally. I like to become, I'm not saying someone else, but I like to learn something that I'm truly interested in, not just talk the shit about. Most people talk shit about things. I want to go experience it. But again, I only want to do what I want to do. And I think a lot of people, get afraid to say that or even do that because they're afraid of what other people may think of them, or if they want to try something new or experiment, they're afraid.
Moving on to the next topic, I'm
scared.
Physically fit. I mean, you are avid. You work out constantly. I've seen your videos and you're always giving great tips, so. Insecurity
issues. That's what I call them. People don't want to admit it. It's a lot of insecurity. I've said it my whole life.
I don't think it's insecurity. Actually, quite honestly, I think it's the opposite of that. I think you're very comfortable to share those tips. And sometimes, like, every time you post something, I'm like, oh, quick, another tip. Like, let me try to, figure out how I can benefit from this with, just physically. So with COVID and everyone being more socially distancing and working out at home more, though the gyms have been opening up, a lot more folks have been cooking more and eating more. I know I have been a lot of that. So what are your main tips for just being healthy and maintaining a healthy weight?
Taking an honest approach. I think one of the things most people, when it comes to fitness in general, they don't take an honest approach. They don't know.
We love our food too much.
Here's the thing, and I'm kind of I'm good and bad, because I think when I do my YouTube tips and all that, it's an honest approach.
Yeah.
So I'm not, and people think because I'm always in the gym or just because I've worked out my entire life and I'm kind of obsessed with weight training and all this, that I expect others to be. It's actually quite the opposite. I know I'm kind of obsessed with that, right? That's just something I've been doing my entire life. I started at 5 years old. It never ended. So I call a gym my playground. But I know most people aren't looking at a gym as a playground. Like if I look at a corporate office, That's probably how a lot of people look at a gym. Like, I don't even want to walk in a corporate building. I'm
Mm.
not that guy.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to, even if you know my podcast or anything, I'm outside, I'm traveling. I am not going to be sitting
Always
in a
on the go.
cubicle. I couldn't be. So I think a lot of people feel that when they working out, like, I don't want to have anything really to do with that. And I get it. But when it comes to them wanting to be healthy, let's figure out what you want to do. Forget about what I'm doing. I'll help you if you want it, but you're not going to probably do what I do. You're not going to put the time in, the effort. And again, that doesn't mean I'm some superior dude but I've been doing it my entire life. It'd be like a businessman that's been working, his entire life, starting from 18 to 50. And then all of a sudden you decide at 50 years old, I think, yeah, I want to get in shape. It's going to take a long time to probably get into the shape, but also take a realistic approach. Are you just really looking, to go to a gym 2-3 times a week to escape? Are you looking to lose weight? Are you there to build muscle? Are you there to make it social? Because if it's not fun, you're most likely, not going to stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
Me tormenting my body was fun for me. I love being sore. I love lifting heavy weights. Back to insecurity. I never felt big enough, right? No matter how big I got, I always felt small and weak and scrawny. Why? I have no idea, but that drove me. That keeps driving me. So that works for me. But the truth is, coming down to what we're just discussing, it comes down to taking an honest approach to what you're really going to put into this. Don't say you're going to go all of a sudden change your diet. You're going to go to the gym 4 or 5 days a week. You're going to, your workouts are going to be this, and you're going to now get more sleep now, and you're going to hydrate. And did I say change your diet? This is all bullshit. So stop bullshitting yourself.
Yeah.
Let's get to the core. Let's get to the core of what you want.
Yes.
And let's start working on it.
Okay. So those drastic approaches may not be, there's no stickiness to them. They may be hard to keep up and maintain, right?
Absolutely. But you create your own life to make it work. And if you don't, then you don't want to do it. It's
Okay.
like right?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So my big thing now, right, is that I'm not, I'll have occasional glass of wine. I don't drink as much as I used to back in the day. However, I'm a huge foodie. My husband and I, we just love to cook and we love to eat.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my goal would be just to be, as I get older now, my metabolism is changing, how I can do a better job just watching my waistline, maintaining my weight.
Yeah.
And of course, I love my desserts. And of course, it's COVID now, so gotta have my dessert. Like that's like a no-brainer.
Oh, that's right.
So I don't know. How do you work with someone like me?
It's very simple. We know what you love to do, right? We know you love food.
I love to bake.
And we know it sounds like you just want to tighten up the waist area, right?
Yep.
And get a little more cardio going. You're not going to go run a marathon, right? That's not your goal right now. I'm just saying, right?
Book. I'd rather go to a museum if they were open. Yeah.
Right. So, somebody like you is very simple. I'd say, for one, your portion controls, all we'd have to do is back up a little on that, for starters.
Okay.
Right? Maybe the times you're eating, right? I'm just saying.
That was huge. Yeah, the times. Okay.
Yeah, the times you're eating. And then, again, if you don't want to go to a gym or you're not interested in, you can walk an extra mile or two with your husband, just hypothetically saying. Something simple. You can maybe do like yoga, say once a week, and maybe throw in, go to do, no joke, like a Tai Chi one day.
Yep.
Maybe the next day go do, again, some swimming. I tell people, first, what you want food-wise, let's figure out what you want to do fitness-wise. There's hundreds of things out there you can do. You may have just not discovered it. I don't care if you all of a sudden, you live in Florida, your opportunities are kind of endless, even living near an ocean too, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have so many opportunities. We may have just not figured those out. I goof around and say, you can try fencing. I know that sounds ridiculous. You could go surfing. I don't care. You can go not only can you go outside to do a ton of things, there's so many different types of classes, and there's dance classes. There's all these things, but I think people restrict themselves because they're afraid of, how am I going to look there? I'm not as advanced. Then if I started, I got to stick with it. There's always all these excuses. Just go out and test. Back to like what I was saying about myself. Yeah, you're going to find something you truly love. And again, you may want to just do one thing that week instead of saying, oh my God, I got to go to the gym 3 or 4 times a week. No, how about we go once a week for starters? Why don't I just go once a week? I'll even get on an elliptical. Maybe I'll just do that for a half an hour. Then, something else, you and your husband maybe find something you can go do together, physical cycling. You two get on the beach and just You know what I mean? There's all these things. I think that's the simplest beginning for you.
Yeah, I think you're right. You know, I have this exercise bike that we got
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah. You don't use it, right? It's just a piece of furniture.
I've been on it before, but this is, you know what it is? I just feel like, okay, so like you, I've got to do too many things at the same time. So if I'm on that bike for 45 minutes or even half hour, it takes away from what I'm doing elsewhere. And you're saying, come on, Grace, don't be lazy, get up half hour earlier, whatever. I don't know. So I think I just need to incorporate it into my lifestyle, like you were saying.
It's not a priority. If you needed to read an article or a book, someone told you, like I said, Grace, I got this great new book, you're going to read it.
Oh, yeah.
It's a priority. It's a mental priority. What's your physical priority? You know, you got to flip it around.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Your health is probably more important actually than even anything else in your life at your age. I don't mean to, but most people pull back as they get older when they should be going not full throttle. Because just because you're getting older, you're not going to be as strong as you were, right? You're not going to be as, have as much energy, maybe. All these different types of things. That doesn't mean you keep pulling back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Jane Fonda, I once heard that about the one thing I found quite interesting about her. Everyone, as they get older, you know, they try to keep up with their past and then they get miserable because they can't. They don't have physical wise, right?
Yeah, because they're trying to live a life that has already passed. Like
yeah, they weren't there. Oh, I'm not going to be as strong as I was. I don't have, you know, I can't get my wind back. I'm not as flexible. But so people start quitting or pulling back when actually you should start when you see that type of situation, you should start walking more. You should start getting healthier more. That's what's going to work. Doing less is not going to help you if that kind of,
yeah,
that's kind of obvious.
You're absolutely right.
You should make it social. You know, you're a very social person and you love the network. So
maybe if it's like maybe when I'm FaceTiming my mom or something, I should just be doing that or just incorporate it into the social aspect. You're right. I'm a solo guy. I don't have the patience, again, back to self-centeredness sometimes and I have to do what I want to do when I want to do it again. Yeah, well, I know. That's probably a better approach. Well, it saves me a lot of time, less aggravation. If you want to come and work out with me, great, but I'm not scheduling my workouts around anybody. And I never really, unless I had or worked with a workout partner, maybe. Mm-hmm. But that I know specifically, I'm going to get everything done. There's not going to be any excuses. I'm not waiting for somebody. But here's the other side. I think this is more, I don't think that's for you. I don't think you're a solo gym rat or a solo, you know, maybe attacking that. Or you probably would have been doing it. Yeah, right. You're right. You're a social girl or say you want to go, let me go try one day a free week of Pilates. You meet some nice girls or guys there, whatever. Oh, let me try a yoga class. Let me go try whatever you want to try. I don't care if it's rock climbing. Yes, indoors. Experience and being around people. Yes. Right. They're going to inspire you and then you're going to want to see them. That's going to kind of make you go. They're going to text you, hey, you going to work out? Those are little added pluses, I think, that someone like yourself may need to inspire you, at least at the beginning. Okay. Now, so last question on the topic of just staying healthy and exercising. Okay. What do you think is a healthy way to get energy? You know, I think obviously the foods you eat are probably the most important because you are what you eat. I don't care what anyone says. But I think the one thing people lack more than anything as we get older is we don't get enough sleep. And not good sleep for me. And taking naps. I'm just telling you what works best for me. Okay. But I really think as we get older, you know, it goes one extreme or the other. A lot of guys my age sleep too much or they're too lazy and they sit around too much, right? Mm-hmm. Or on the other end, if they own companies or they're busy doing their thing, they're not getting enough sleep. They're still going to bed at, you know, 11, 12 o'clock or 1 or 2 or whatever. And then they're getting up at 7, 6 in the morning. Mm. You have to figure out specifically, I tell people, what works for you when it comes to your body. I don't know what gives you energy compared to what gives me energy, if that makes sense. No one also lives the same life. Where am I burning my energy and where am I not? Mm-hmm. So if I'm a construction worker, hypothetically, he would destroy me probably, if I had to go do construction right now, can you imagine? And he may have a belly and he may look like this and I may look the way I look, like more into fitness. He couldn't do what I do. Probably in the gym, but I definitely can't do what he does. But how does he have energy to work for 8, 10, 12 hours and do what he does in construction? And then he may look at me and go, how the hell do you do that in a gym for 2 hours? Right? Mm-hmm.
But it's also the energy that we create. And I think a lot of it is mental. But back to you, you have to figure out specifically, or anyone, what's giving you energy or what's exhausting you, right? And I think a lot of it too is mental. That's a whole nother podcast thing, but yeah, I really do. I think it's food and sleep, and but back to careers, we all did. When I traveled constantly taking 12, 15 flights a week, people are like, how do you do that and work out? I'm like, what do you think I'm going to do? Sit on a plane all day and then go sit in a hotel like a lot of people? That was exhausting me. Me getting off a plane and running to a gym, that was energizing me.
Mm-hmm.
It was the way you kind of looked at it, right? When I would travel with people, they'd be like, Rich, how do you, even if I went with people. So what gave me energy was looking forward to that workout. What was exhausting me was kind of sitting on a flight for 5-6 hours or catching 2 flights. Somebody else may be, the other way around, I guess. So
Yeah, no, that's interesting, because I guess it goes with that adage that says energy creates energy, right? So
if you're doing what you love to do, you're gonna have a lot of energy. I always say that to
for
people.
that, for what
For
you're
anything in life.
for anything in life.
I
Okay.
believe it. If you're doing what you want to do.
You don't think it's selective energy for what you just want to do? Okay, so I love to bake and I love to
Right.
cook. And recently I've been baking a lot of old recipes, comfort food that my mom used to make for us when we were kids. And I've been trying to figure it out because there's, everything's in her head, right? There's no written down recipe. So I've been baking a lot.
Yeah.
So I always have energy for that.
That's exactly right.
But just that.
Well, if I said to a lot of people, hey, they're exhausted. Hey, you want to go to Hawaii for a week? Holy shit, let's pack up our stuff. Like you see a lot of families, because I grew up in Orlando, Florida. You see energy. My family members, I see them in Chicago. They're all exhausted, whatever. They come to Florida. They're like a different family. Let's hit the parks. Let's go to I said, you see, now when you're in Chicago with the weather or dealing with all that, you have a different energy level. When you go somewhere where you may want to be and love doing certain things, your energy level, that goes for anything, I think, in life.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're doing things you love, I can assure you, you're going to have a lot more energy than obviously if you're doing things you don't love.
Okay. Yes.
Of
I agree.
course. Of course.
Okay. All right. Moving on to our next area. Let's chat on just family and fun time. Now, when you're not working or working out, what do you do for fun? Because it sounds like you're already having fun because you're choosing to do what you love, right? So what do you do for fun?
Well, I live in Florida. I've lived here off and on. For the most part, I've been here since I was 18, but I've been coming here since I was 5 years old. And then for a short stint, I lived with my cousin in Carlsbad for a while,
Mm-hmm.
California, San Diego, because I really love warm weather. For the last 10 years, with work and doing my own thing, I was able to travel everywhere all over North America. I also was able to travel to Italy as well, which was amazing in itself for a while.
Very
So,
cool.
and I guess I was incorporating work with fun, but I was always creating something as well, if that makes sense. So I think I kind of am the person who I'm going to blend work with fun all the time, if that makes sense. So say I'm going to leave here and my buddy Robert hit me up to say, Rich, what are you doing later? Let's work. I wouldn't mind. Maybe I'll work out with you earlier. Maybe not, whatever. Let's do some podcasts, whatever. Some people may be looking at that as work. I'm looking at that as kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And even when I'm working, I'm usually, I guess you could say, just I'm happy to be doing what I'm doing because most of the time what I'm doing, I enjoy what I'm doing. But if that kind of makes sense, when Florida, though, back to that, I call myself a professional tourist. And because a lot of times I've had season tickets to Disney my whole life, except recently, mainly because of COVID. I still do Universal, but we're 60 miles either which way to the beach. Rhea, my girlfriend, she's oversees 20 something stores for Sephora. So I was able to travel with her, and they're all beach towns.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a blast. So when I wasn't traveling, I was kind of traveling with her locally. So I'd say that's what I was doing. But since COVID, it's basically just been podcast, YouTube, eating at restaurants, because that's normally what I do anyways, mainly visiting a lot of my friends who own Italian restaurants, spending time with my daughters in restaurants, working out. It's pretty simple for me right now. And just sharing content everywhere. So that's
Sure.
me, I guess.
Sure. I love that. Now, What's your favorite meal or your favorite restaurant?
I'd say oh my God, I'm going to get tore up because I have so many friends, family members that own restaurants.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going to go with one that I don't think anybody can argue with, especially from Chicago. It's called Freddy's Pizzeria. I grew up eating there. It's in Cicero.
Mm,
And if you ever have a chance, it's right outside the city of Chicago. One of the first suburbs right west of
okay.
Chicago is a town called Cicero. That's where Al Capone and where my family was from. So it's called Freddy's Pizzeria, and they have all different types of authentic Italian dishes, but you just go in there and you order. It also has different lunch meats, breads. They're from Italy, and they always win best pizza,
Oh, nice.
and they win best gelato. They win best Italian ice, and it's a house.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's old school. It's kind of like what you grew up at a little bit, and they kept that authenticity of it.
Yeah.
And it's if you ever look it up, I know it's called Freddy's Pizzeria. Just put Freddy's, and you go in there. It's unbelievable. And they have different foods. That's Mikey's favorite place. I'd say pork tenderloins,
Yeah, yeah.
different Italian subs, all different dishes from Italy, and it's
Mhm.
always in all different style pizzas by the slice. I think it's the best ever for us. When I usually fly in or fly out, I always go to Freddy's, but you got to have cash, and they don't let you use the restroom. So there's that. I know them; they may let me, but I still know. You go beforehand, like
Yeah, that's
you're
great.
on you're on your own.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Business. I love it too. That's great. Um,
it's good.
now, so during this whole pandemic with people pivoting and changing and adjusting their lifestyles, uh, have you developed any good habits or even bad habits?
I got a bunch of bad habits, and I actually kind of like them. I know a lot of people. I don't. I know a lot of people don't like their bad habits. Um, I, as far as good habits go, I've been really spending a lot more time with my daughters or going back and forth because I was traveling for the first 10 years of their life or 12 years. I was always with them.
Mm,
Then I had to travel so much, I didn't get to be with them as much.
hmm.
So as far as a good habit, we've been going back and forth. I've been spending time with both of my daughters independently. And I like that. I know it sounds like weird to say, hey, what type of habit is that? But it's when you have two kids in college and you're traveling all the time, right? It is hard. Like they live their own lives now. But I liked me not just reaching out and texting and sending photos and just talking on the phone. It's actually to say, hey, we're going to be doing dinner, this, this, this. That's one thing that I love.
Hmm.
I'm me being home for the first time probably in the last decade, for the last 7-8 months. My whole life got kind of turned upside down because I was always used to running and going. Now I'm kind of stuck in one spot. So I've had to totally change. But my sleeping, I'm sleeping in way more than because before catching flights and all that time, I didn't always, I'd wake up always ready to leave and go somewhere or go to a different hotel, catch a flight. It was all anxiety. It wasn't even anxiety, just what I was doing. Now it's all shut up and rest.
Hmm.
With the habit that I think I've always had that is bad is I constantly like eating out. And that was when I was traveling or whatever I'm doing in my life. That's spending money with me is a bad habit. I love spending money, eating out, and just going. So regardless, COVID or not, my life really hasn't changed. I tell people I put a mask on and I've gone. I've even traveled throughout Florida. So I would say that's kind of a bad habit too. But for the most part, my life's been very simple. And I get obsessed with things, I guess you could say, like YouTube and podcasts now. I've totally engulfed myself into that. So when
And you're great at it. So,
I don't know, I don't, it was like film, but I lose all my, I guess you could say I lose myself in it sometimes.
hmm.
And I'm definitely somebody, when I start something, I'm not going to quit until I decide to quit. Is that good or bad? I don't know, because it never ends.
Yeah, yeah, but that is good because no one should say when you should quit, right? So that's good.
But sometimes, like say making films or being in that industry, maybe I was in it too long and say, hey, let's cut the ties. Let's try something new. It's a catch-22 a lot of times because a lot of people, like somebody like myself, when I start, like when is enough YouTube videos? Or
Hmm.
when is it like, do I have to make money on YouTube for me to think I'm successful? Do I have to have 1,000? Do I have to have 2,000? Do I have to go back and start doing something like when is enough? I sometimes don't know when enough is enough.
Mm.
if that kind of makes sense. I
Yeah.
love bouncing off different things,
Yeah.
but
But I think the fact that you're asking yourself that question, is it enough? When is it enough? I think you're already ahead of the game, ahead of the curve, because so many folks may be not focused on that because it's just never enough. The fact that you're even asking that, is it enough?
yeah, self-awareness is about everything. But it's even like, say I wrote one book and then I said, okay, I got to write another one. Then I was working on a third book, cookbook with my mother. I'm like, why do I got to do this cookbook?
You
Yeah,
gotta do that. That's
I know. So,
come out.
but I already was doing like, there's a third or a fourth. That's my point. Like once I started it, and
Uh-huh.
that was that in my app. I have an app called the You Around that I'm working on. And my mother's cookbook, I had to stop myself. In the app, I had to stop myself because I get so engulfed in it. Again, spending money. And a lot of times, back to entrepreneur, you're constantly spending money. And I think a lot of people want to do their own thing, but don't want to spend their own money doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But I put the brakes on both of those because I'm like, okay, you're already doing too much, or you're already, you're losing your mind. Every second of the day, I'm thinking about either now, an app, a program. Now I'm sliding into podcast, YouTube, and my mom's cookbook. I'm like, what? Something suffer. It's all suffering if I can't. So back to the two thing, I had to limit myself.
Okay. All right. But you're loving what you do. So as long as it's feeling good.
It's you know what, if you can, I've been doing podcasts, if I'm not definitely at that position, but spending so much money throughout my past trying to live a certain lifestyle exhausted me. I just became a minimalist. By me minimizing everything, gave me a lot more freedom to become or do what I truly wanted to do.
Yep.
It wasn't just about having big homes, sports cars, gated communities, boats, all that shit. Because I found myself constantly having to work and do things I didn't want to do to support that.
Yep.
So let me get rid of all that bullshit and kind of just back up and minimize. Now I can do whatever I want to do to a certain degree.
Yeah, I love that. It reminds me of this quote by the late Dr. Wayne Dyer. He said that, there's that switch off at one point in your life when you go from ambition and collecting, whatever it is you're collecting, just ambition to purpose.
Yep.
Yep. And then when it happens, then you're just like, it's just like a light bulb turns on. It's just like, geez, why was I killing myself? Like, I mean, it was fun, but like, it's just an entirely different approach. And I think I've definitely had that switch off. It sounds like
as you get older too, you're like, what's really, at the end of the day, what is really making me happy? Like you spending time with maybe your son, right? Going with your husband out to lunch or dinner.
Yeah.
It's not about, having a house that's 4,000 square feet, or it's not about having $100,000 cars, or, it's still fun. I'm not saying it's bad.
It's still fun. Yeah.
It's all good if you want to do it, or if you're making the money to do it. A lot of times, most people aren't going to make as much money as they think, especially as an entrepreneur. You think you're going to be the next Steve Jobs or the head of whatever, Amazon or all that. Most fail.
Mm-hmm.
But, most people are failing. So that doesn't mean just because you're failing or you're doing something that you're failing at, that you still can't enjoy what you're doing or still keep going after what you want to go. But if you put yourself in a financial situation where you're strapped, how do you expect to really succeed to a certain degree?
Absolutely. And I wanted to touch on this briefly because on one of your videos, or possibly your podcast, or maybe it was both, you spoke about how some folks, entrepreneurs, they almost overinvest. They do things and it's not necessarily maybe right or smart when they're just starting off, with the type of monies they're investing into certain programs or certain whatever, these self-proclaimed motivational gurus. You know what I mean? Because there are many programs out there, and I've been to a lot of entrepreneur conferences, and I know a whole bunch of people that are in that industry, and it could be very, very costly to have someone mentor you or to be part of a mastermind.
For sure.
Thousands of dollars. So I thought that was great. I really enjoyed that podcast you did. It really brought what that took, especially with so many people looking to kind of restart or recreate themselves.
Yeah, I think most people are getting bullshitted a lot of times.
Yeah.
I think everybody thinks somebody else has the answer a lot of times. And don't get me wrong, taking advice from coaches, gurus, or getting consulting. That's wonderful if you can afford it. But the truth is most people can't, or they can only do a little bit, or they can only afford so much.
Yep.
But you have to figure out, talk about self-awareness, what is going to work specifically for you, because if you taught a course on whatever you did and I followed it, maybe I would be successful to a certain point, but say you're in New York and I'm in Florida, two totally different areas.
Two different
You're a
markets.
woman, truthfully, I'm a man.
Mm-hmm.
Our sleeping patterns, our eating, our social environments, people we know, how much money we have, everything is different.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to a lot of times say, I'm going to follow this guy's program or listen to this person and do what they say, that's going to make me successful. A lot of times it doesn't even relate to you. It has nothing to really do with you. You may both want to do real estate. I'm just saying, say you want to learn real estate. Like I see tons of people teaching real estate or even the stock market and all these different types of things, to say, well, first of all, too, when you're teaching this, when did you do what you did? So if you're teaching me about stocks and you made a ton of money, was that 1 year ago? Because COVID's a whole different thing. Was that 10 years ago? Now you're kind of an outdated platform.
Yep.
I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So also, where were you when you did this? How much money did you start with? Like I said, where am I at? What am I doing? What are my bills compared to what your bills were, just hypothetically? What's your education compared to mine?
Mm-hmm.
All these different types of things. You know, I always said when we're making films, you're on your own journey. Don't get me wrong. There is a formula, say in Hollywood, that if they do this, this, this. But as you could tell, as time changes constantly, it's all changing. So you have to make sure not only what you're doing right now is going to hopefully work, what's the future going to look like? Because that dude talking to me about stocks that he learned 10 years ago, is that really going to even have anything to do with the next year? It probably doesn't. So anyways, that's where I think people get caught up. I think they have to understand, back to failure, they're going to constantly, you fail forward. You want to learn as much as you can from everybody, but you have to figure out personally what works specifically for you. And I talk about that with fitness too. I don't care what I tell you, you're not going to probably go do it. You're going to do what you want to do, and you're going to do it the way you want to do it. Right? So same with business.
All right. I love that. Thanks, Rich. Okay, to wrap up, what inspires you and gets you through a challenging day you might have?
Jesus Christ. I have a lot of bad days too, believe it or not, because
I don't believe it.
I do. I get very aggravated because
You're always so positive and energetic and just always so forward thinking and on the go.
I think it's back to one flaw I have is I don't get caught up in money.
Yeah.
Which is, when I was younger, I was obsessed with money.
I think
so. It was
similar to you in that fashion. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So everything was about making money, either legally or illegally. I had to have cash flow. I had to have all these different possessions, and I had to do all this shit.
Yep.
And then after I got a divorce, I said the other thing, I want to release everything.
Yeah.
So everything's extreme. So it was kind of like, I want to shed my skin kind of and be like, F this. I want to be free. I call myself a gypsy snob because I just want to go do whatever I want to do, like a gypsy, wherever I want to do it. But it's got to be at a higher level. Like I'm not going to be a guy off the grid going camping. I'm just saying I'm going to be in a hotel or whatever, like in my mindset. But I just needed freedom. But it went too far, I think, with me. So sometimes, when I still get caught up at say, I wish I had a lot more money to do something, and I'll get aggravated and depressed that I don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the other end, then everybody else that for the most part, I know, like, Rich, I want your lifestyle. I want to kind of do what you want to do and all these different types of things. Guys that are very wealthy, I'm like, or whatever, I'm like, well, I sometimes get emotional over that to the point where it just aggravates me, because I also think maybe at this point in my life, I should have had a lot more wealth because I blew so much wealth. I didn't invest it correctly. My mother always talks about that. I had a lot of opportunities, but again, it may have not led me to where I'm at now, but I blew a lot of opportunities where I think could have been set for a long, long time, if that makes sense. So that does, I think a lot of people feel that, back to hindsight. But me and my father go through that a lot because he had a really successful business. I worked with him for many, many years, and we did well for so long, and we both thought we'd do well forever, and then it ends.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times it ends, and then you don't think it'll ever end, and when it does, I just I want freedom, and then at the same time I'm aggravated I don't have more. Does that kind of make sense? It's it's an honest approach. Yeah.
No, that's a very honest, candid approach. I appreciate that. This wealth you're talking about is really just if I am understanding, it's just the financial wealth, because it sounds like every other aspect of your life is just so well balanced. You know, you got Rhea in your life, you got the girls. I mean, it's just everything else is just cruising. You're on cruise control and just enjoying yourself. So it's just really the financial aspect. And I think many people have that. I have that same thing. You know, we made a ton of money, we blew a ton of money. I mean, it's just
Yeah. I think it's wanting to leave it for your kids. Like
I
I want to just shuffle that, but then at the same time, I want them to suffer a little bit. Like I want them to.
let them develop their own
Exactly.
go getter attitude. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, my youngest daughter had a liver transplant. I don't talk about it all the time. So she's doing amazing and she's in her 20s. And then my other daughter has type 1 diabetes.
Mm.
So I will say that I'm always I want them to always go after their dreams and goals. That's why I kind of always do what I do.
Yep.
But at the same time, me always kind of focusing in doing what I'm always doing. Sometimes I find myself, I'm not ignoring them or anything, but I'm just not there for them a lot of times, maybe when I should be. They don't feel that way. I think sometimes guilt wise.
Mm-hmm. I think we all do that. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And then them kind of being sick. This is not to do it. I don't need to tell them this, but it aggravates me. And I not because I don't want my daughters to ever think I feel sorry for them. And I don't want anybody ever either. That was my whole thing with my daughters. It's about moving forward,
Mm-hmm.
keep moving forward. You know what I'm saying? But behind closed doors for both of my daughters to go through what they go through medicines wise and all the doctor's appointments and ups and downs health wise, maybe it takes a bigger toll on me. I just maybe suppress it. And so that is something that, again, I'm not a boohoo guy. I go from being silly or happy or whatever, then aggravated. So I do fight that a lot, especially if I'm with my daughter and she's got to shoot insulin, the other one's taking meds, or we got to go for a certain type of operation for her or something. It goes from 0 to 100. And then I get, so that does take a toll on me. And so anyways, it's just that's something I go through.
Yeah, yeah, sure. And I think we all have, to our own degrees, we all have our heavies that we carry, right?
For sure.
So what inspires you and keeps you going then? It sounds like it's your daughters. It sounds like it's family, it's Rhea, it's everything that's good, right?
Yeah. I think what inspires me, and I don't think a lot of people address this, I think a lot of things I do is to impress my parents. I really do. You know, at the end of the day, we don't want to sometimes, or maybe inspire my family members, friends, or colleagues. It's more, it's not to show off. It's just to say, hey, if you want to do something, I'm here for you to help you to do it, because I love helping people probably more than anything else. But it's kind of, I want even though I never became maybe at the level of a filmmaker that I wanted to, I look back, or even writing a book had nothing to do with my parents, or creating a program. Actually, some of the things I talk about and stuff, my mother's like, are you out of your mind? Like, it's really off. And my father's like, yeah, you go with it. Do whatever you got to do. Don't let anybody hold you back. He's that guy.
Yeah. Nice.
But my grandparents, I have grandparents, my grandmother's still alive, and even my cousins and everybody. I think just me doing what I want to do and showing my parents that, I'm always trying to succeed at a certain level. And I always wanted to kind of bring them along with me. I haven't maybe been able to at the level I wanted to, but I'm just I know how fortunate I am to still bitched and complained and never went after his goals. Like something can happen to her. She never even had the opportunity to go after her goals. What was holding me back, or my dreams? She may never even get the opportunity to do any of these things. I did. I'm 30 years old. Not only that, I have a whole life ahead of me, and hopefully so does she. And so I look at life a lot like that, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good way. That's a good approach.
It's good, I mean, back to parents, I think it's just funny, but I always say, am I doing this for my parents or myself? Like in my head, like my mother wanted me to do radio my whole life, so I did a podcast for it, truthfully. I wouldn't really done it. I wanted it, but she's like, you got to go on the radio. You got to go. I said, because of my face, like as a joke. She's like, she didn't like the film industry. She loves the film industry, but nothing like she loved the radio industry, and she wanted me to do radio. So, and then my dad loves, kind of more flamboyant cars, different lifestyles. So that's kind of what the program's about. Identity, wardrobe, all that. So I kind of I'm doing both a little bit for them, I think, to a certain degree too.
I think it's wonderful that you honor your parents. I kind of wish more folks would do that. But that's super cool. Thank you so much, Rich, for sharing with us on Shop Talk 360 Chats.
That's good.
Authenticity. You've always just been a mentor to me and helping me along my way too. So I appreciate it. I love the shout out that you're doing on Shop Talk 360, your back screen. Thank you so much.
There you go.
It's so awesome. You're just always a huge supporter. Just a supporter to
a bald guy with your brand. Oh yeah.
No,
that's good.
Always appreciate you.
Oh no, thank you. And find a partner. Like I got Rhea. She helped me write my book even, but just to wrap up, you got to surround yourself with people that understand your craziness.
Absolutely.
I mean, right? I mean, that's what it comes down. If you have your wife, your husband,
that's so important.
It's so important. I'm so fortunate to have her always, because the first thing I know everybody says, we were just talking, is how do you deal with Rich? Right? How do you deal with him? Because from the minute I get up, you don't know what I'm going to do till the minute, you don't even know where I'm going to be. Like it's so, but it takes a lot of patience.
Yeah.
To deal with maybe someone like me and you. So we do dinner stuff. Like sometimes I'll even get her a little buzz, or we'll be drinking in Naples, Florida. And like, I'll do a video. Or I go to Amish restaurants. We'll do fun ones that are unique. So I'll make her go hang out with the Amish and I'll video that. I kind of like videos where she goes to the gym tours with me. Back to a gym thing real quick is when I met her, she hated the gym. When she'd come and visit me in San Diego, she'd literally just stand in the gym like this, miserable. And I said, listen, if you're going to date me or end up with me, I'm going to tell you right now, if you want to spend time with me besides work, this is where I'm going to be. And then as time went on, now she loves the gym. But you know what I mean? And she never did anything like that besides dance. So again, make it social a little bit. So she goes to the gym with me. And that's where we spend time together. So
that's super cool.
It is. So that's it.
Now, how can our viewers reach out to you?
You could just, my name, richcelenza.com. That's my main website. Masteringselfconfidence.com. My YouTube channel is just my name. My podcast now is just my name, The Rich Celenza Show. But if you just Google me, just Google my name, you're going to see so much shit on there. I'm sure you can find me one way or another. Email me, leave a comment. I'm kind of all over the place.
Awesome. So. Rich, thank you so much for your time and for your energy. Greatly appreciated.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. Back to this.
We will pick up on this again soon, I'm sure.
Shop talk. All right.